Pervert in my house. I was a pretty and relatively smart 15-year-old girl, a good kid who did well in school despite a tough childhood. I was working at an amusement park full-time during the summer. The area I lived in could be sketchy, but having grown up with little to no adult supervision, I was used to trying to look out for myself. My father was out of town, mother was long out of the picture, and my sister, 3 years older, and myself were staying at our home alone. I finished work at 11 p.m. when the park closed, and walked home by myself as I usually did. It wasn't far, perhaps 10 minutes. I arrived home, my sister was still out somewhere, and I got ready for bed. Putting my pajamas on and crawled into bed. I was starting to fall asleep but heard a small noise. I didn't know what it was, but it didn't seem like a usual house noise. My bedroom was on the second floor with stairs leading up. I didn't hear anything after that noise. Didn't investigate. Just chalked it up to nothing. I started to fall back asleep when I heard what sounded like hesitant footsteps on the stairs. I was instantly awake. But in my mind, it was my sister coming home and climbing the stairs where her bedroom was. Still in bed, I yelled out, "Wendy, Wendy, is that you?" I heard nothing back. I yelled again, "Wendy, is that you?" Nothing. More footsteps. I was petrified, but as I tell the story to this day, I don't understand some of my reactions that night, so I really can't explain them. I got out of bed, opened the ajar bedroom door fully, and went out to the stairs, where I stood at the top. Below me, about halfway up the stairs, was a man I had never seen before. He looked to be early 20s. A little taller than my 5'7", not a big guy but solid with blonde curly hair. I asked him what he was doing. His reply was a garbled mess, something along the lines of, "Where's Wendy?" My mother told me not to get mixed up with women. Where's Wendy? From his manner and wild-eyed look, he seemed like he may have been doing drugs. He had followed me home from the park and was asking where's Wendy in response to my calling out for her. For some reason I got very angry, not just scared, and started screaming at him to get out. Get out of the house. That I was going to call my father and Wendy, and he needed to just get out. To my surprise, he did. He turned around and ran back down the stairs, and I didn't see where he went after that. But it turns out he must have left. I have no idea how he got in, but he was definitely there for me. That's why he followed me. Not burglary or anything else. He was looking to rape, and who knows what else. I think the only reason he left was because he had no idea where my sister Wendy was. Thought she was in the house, and it was an added complication to him getting caught. I was so shaken. I stayed up the rest of the night. I didn't call the cops, didn't call a friend. The only person I told was my sister the next day. I don't know why. I just sat in a rocking chair, clutching my cat and rocking and crying, staying awake till the next morning. This happened 35 years ago. I never told anyone till now. He tried to come in and clean our carpets. My mom's dog, Punky, rest in peace, was a very sweet, loving dog. She was an ESA dog, but trained to be a service dog for PTSD before she lost her leg. I had never seen her get aggressive with anyone in the entire 12 years she lived. She never growled or nipped anyone. And she had no sense of smell, so she loved all animals and people. A real gentle giant among our little terriers at 60 pounds. What I'm getting at here was that her barking at something and being aggressive was so wildly uncharacteristic that I only saw it once. I was an 11-year-old female at home with my siblings. My then stepdad is at work, and my mom ran up to the gas station to grab a pack of cigarettes. For reference, we lived in a 2-bedroom trailer in the middle of the woods, on a dead-end road at the time. And you had to really make an effort to get down our road, find our house, navigate down our rickety driveway, and find the door. I'm sitting at the computer, having a grand time watching YouTube videos, when all of a sudden all of our dogs, about 2 Boston Terriers and 1 Chihuahua, perk up, bark a few times, and start investigating down the hall. My siblings were napping in the bedroom at the end of the hall at the time, so I figured they just stirred and scared the dogs. But then Punky sits up suddenly, stands up on the couch, and puffs her chest out. Her ears are perked up, her fur standing on end, her tail straight up, and then she barks, loudly. The bark booms through the living room and echoes around. And all of a sudden she lunges off of the couch and goes tearing down the hallway. I'm already on edge because I don't think I've heard her bark ever. She's a Basenji mix, so her bark is more of a baying sound. But this was a big, loud, alert bark. I stand up and go to look down the hallway, ready to fight off what I'm assuming is a shadow monster in the hallway based on how the dogs are acting. But then I hear it. Knock, knock, knock. We didn't get visitors because of how weird our house was location-wise. So my 11-year-old mind had no clue what to do here. The only people who showed up were family, and they didn't knock. So I slowly walked towards the door. The knock drew the attention of the dogs, and they came running back down the hallway, all except for Punky. And I felt better with our 3 yappy dogs in the room with me, even if they were all the size of New York City sewer rats. I opened the door just a bit, and standing on our porch is the sketchiest man I think I've ever seen. I can still picture him perfectly. He was a really thin, taller man with dark hair and a sunken face, bags under his eyes, and this half-managed hair. Sort of like he just gave it a quick brush and then figured it was good enough. Everything about him seemed just a little too thin, a little too shallow, and his clothes were all off too. They were nice, but fake nice, you know, like a clean, newer looking t-shirt and new jeans. But he had what looked like a suit jacket on. All his clothes were dark too, despite the fact that it was summer in Texas, and the weather was definitely into the 100 seconds that day. He also had this plain, unlabeled bottle in his hand. It looked like the label had been covered up and taped over. I stare up at him in confusion because I definitely don't know this man, and I ask what he wants. He smiles at me in this way that's way too fake, like this exaggerated and forced grin. And he spoke in the same voice retail workers do. Hey there, kiddo, I'm trying to sell this carpet cleaner here. And he shakes the bottle at me. Mind if I come in to show you how good it works? Alarms are going off in my head because he just seemed so off. Looking back with an adult perspective, the fact that he didn't ask if my parents were home is unnerving, because he probably knew they weren't, and that's why he was here in the first place. I should have told him to get off our property, that I'd have to go get my mom, something except what I did say, but I didn't. Instead, I just shook my head and said, no, we don't have carpet. Well, it works on other things. And he took a big step towards the door and shook the bottle at me. I started to freak out and think to close the door. But the thing is, our front door didn't even lock, so that's basically useless. I'm sure there's something very wrong about to happen, and I'm terrified as I think about what to do in the few seconds I think I have before it does happen. When all of a sudden I hear it. Punky had crept up from the hallway, lowered towards the ground with her teeth bared, and snarling like she was feral. She had slobber just dripping from her mouth. Her ears were down and she was ready to pounce. The guy hears it too, and as I look towards Punky, she tries to lunge past me and I just barely catch her with my leg. As she tries her hardest to duck past me and attack this guy, he freaks out and runs off the porch without another word, booking it down the driveway as I let Punky out along with the rest of our dogs, and they start chasing him. Our small dogs chase him down the driveway and stop about halfway, barking and jumping about. But Punky stops just on the porch and watches him with her ears perked, just staring in the distance until he disappears. I swear I saw someone join up with him running when he got onto the road. The second he disappeared, Punky's entire body language changed, and she went back to being the sweet dog I knew. No barking or growling, just laying around, mouth and throat covered in slobber still. I realize my siblings are still down the call and run to check on them. And when I get to the bedroom, my siblings were sleeping soundly still, but the bedroom window was wide open. The curtains pushed all to one side, and the items on the dresser in front of the window all shoved around. Someone had tried to climb through the window, no doubt in my mind about it. From what I can gather, the bedroom window was visible from the couch, where Punky was sleeping, so I think someone was trying to climb through the window before Punky went after them and scared them off. And the man at the door was meant to distract me. They definitely didn't expect Punky, a bigger dog, because most of the time she was with my mom inside, while our small dogs were the ones that saw the public eye more often. I don't know what they intended to do, but after my mom got home, she took all of us to my aunt's house. And on our way there, we saw the men walking up someone else's driveway, men plural, because we watched the second one split off to wait by the road. So, to the two men apparently going door to door to sell their unlabeled carpet cleaner, I'd really rather not meet again. My house was broken into on Christmas Eve home alone. This happened in 2019. I was in my second year of college and living in a townhome about a 10-minute walk from campus. I lived with two other girls at the time, but they were all back at their parents' house for the holiday. I work in healthcare and was working Christmas this year. A little bit of a backstory, there used to be 4 of us living there, but one girl had moved out due to issues with her boyfriend. He was a jackass who abused our kindness by allowing him to stay there. We told her she needed to kick him out after an incident with him one night after he got physical with her, and verbally abusive with the rest of us. She wouldn't listen, and we told her we would have to talk to the landlord then. Long story short, she ended up moving out and left on bad terms with us. On another side, not here, I have been in a physically, mentally abusive relationship before, so I understand how things may have been going for her. I tried my best for 2 years at that point to help open her eyes to the abuse and get her away from him. At this point, it was affecting everyone and we didn't feel safe with him there, etc., so she moved out. Okay, back to the story. It was Christmas Eve and I worked the next day, so I was getting ready for bed, locked the doors, turned the lights off, and went downstairs, where my bedroom was. I was scrolling on TikTok for about an hour when I heard what sounded like the chairs in the kitchen move. I thought maybe I was hearing the neighbors next door as we share the same walls, and sometimes they can be loud. But I remembered one of them texting me and asking me to bring in a package they were expecting while they were all gone at home. The noise was short-lived, and so I just brushed it off. Next thing I know, my bedroom door is being opened slowly. In this moment, I get a flashback and remember my second grade teacher telling us about the time someone broke into her house, and she acted as if she were asleep, so if they were just there to rob her, they wouldn't feel the need to hurt her if she saw them. But my freaking phone screen is lighting up my scared, jaw-dropped face, so I can't act like I'm asleep. So there I was laying in my bed shitting myself while this guy has one foot in my bedroom with the door cracked open. It felt like an eternity, but in reality was probably more like 10 seconds of us looking at one another. He slowly takes his foot out and closes my door. I sat there just in complete utter shock. I knew I had to call the police, but my anxious ass knew if I called it would alert my parents' phones that I called. Me being dumb as hell was like, well, I don't want to make them worry. Also, I was scared he might still be somewhere in the house, and I didn't know what he would do if he heard me call. So I text the guy I was seeing at the time and tell him some random guy just broke into my house and came into my room. He snapped me out of it and told me to call the police. And so I did. The dispatcher asked me if I felt comfortable to go unlock the front door for them so they didn't have to break it down. And I told her no way, I don't care if the door is broken. I'm not going up there alone. A couple minutes later, I see flashlights shining through my window. I hear the police knocking at the door and announcing themselves. They got in and asked me where I was. I came out of my room and they came and got me. They told me to wait on the back porch while two of them searched the house and one stayed with me. It was like that shit you see in the movies where they have their guns and turn the corner with their partner and everything. They didn't find anyone. And I said nothing looked like it had been taken. They even tried to get fingerprints but were unsuccessful. They then started asking me questions and informed me that the back door was unlocked. It had no signs it had been broken. I told them I locked it. Luckily, the guy I was talking to stayed with me that night, but I still couldn't sleep. I kept having to go check every inch of the house over and over. I placed chairs under the door handles on the front door, back door in my bedroom. The next day I informed our landlord and she refused to come out and change the locks. And she never ended up changing them for the rest of the time we lived there. Every time I go to bed now, I triple check all the doors have been locked. It doesn't matter where I am. I have a dog now and he helps my anxiety of intruders, as well as a recent purchase of a Ring doorbell. I believe it was our old roommate's boyfriend. I think they may have bought an extra key for him because he was basically living there, but I don't understand why he didn't do anything. To me, the house were our belongings. If it were someone random, I don't know why they wouldn't have done what they intended. And that could be many different possibilities. I don't know what their intentions were that night, but to the man who broke into my house on Christmas Eve, let's not meet again.